as far as the mindset goes, I've always said this since I've been in college and left college. I think my college friends had like probably the biggest impact on me in my transformation and my mindset. And the reason I say that is I mentioned it's a unique crowd. Like a service academy attracts a unique crowd. And the people that I was surrounded by were incredibly hardworking, incredibly driven. You know, people didn't just end up there at that school, right? Just like on accident, right? Or because they got lucky. It was people were there. If you think about the school itself, it's a hard 4 years, and it's you know, you go to sea you spend 300 plus days at sea. So if you apply to that school, you know, you got to be pretty driven and goal oriented, especially, you know, to get through and graduate in 4 years, because it's so different and it's a tough process. So a lot of the people I was around, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. And I talked about the example in sports earlier, you know, from high school. I said, you know, the cool thing was to be like second to last. It wasn't to be first. What I noticed is when I compare and contrast different experiences, when I was in college, and I played lacrosse for 4 years in college, which a lot of people don't know. I played it at the academy. It was D3. It was really something to do. You know, it's one of those things where there's like nothing to do, you know, when you're stuck on campus. So I played the sport, and I had great friends, and I had good teammates, and I had a fun time doing it. It was obviously very different lacrosse from what we grew up with and what we were familiar with. It wasn't as high level, but the team captains on the field were coming in first place every time, and they were doing extra laps before practice, and they were staying after practice. So I realized, like, wow, like, you know, these guys were really setting an example, and it sounds cliche. Everyone's like lead by example, but these guys were leading by example, and they wanted to be first and win sprints. Yeah. That way they would encourage you and everybody else to keep up with them and to try to catch them, right, or to try to outperform them. So that was their way of leading by example. And the cool thing in college, for me, the cool thing at our school was to work hard, which I loved. And like I said, I knew deep down, I knew that I wanted something more, and I knew that I thrived off of competition and hard work. And I'm a competitive individual, you know, so, but I thrive off of that kind of stuff, and I enjoy it. And I like having friends that challenge me and push me and motivate me. And I like to do the same. It's not for everybody, but, you know, it's kind of the tough love thing. And that was a big thing, was my mental transformation. A lot of the people I were around, they wouldn't, you know, when you sat down at the dining hall to eat a meal, they would question you if you were eating garbage food. You know, they would say, "Man, really? Like, are you serious? Like, come on, man. Like, you don't need another piece of pizza." And it was the tough love. It wasn't like they were trying to insult you. They were looking out for you. They were actually looking out for your well-being, and they were encouraging you to do better. And the example I use is that, you know, when I was in college, people would encourage you to study harder, right? Stay up later and study harder, and get up earlier and work out more or work out harder. So it was kind of the mindset of the people that I was around. And this is a full 360. It goes back to culture, right? So the culture at this school was very different. It was, like I said, the cool thing was to be in first place. The cool thing was to work hard. Yeah. The cool thing was to excel at all your activities and to take risks, right? And people did it all the time. People put their necks out there. People took risks. People weren't afraid to be loud and to stand up for things that they believed in. And, you know, we joke about it. It's like, you know, when you go to a service academy, you get a lot of like type A personalities in one room. You know, it's like everybody's a type A personality. There's too much testosterone. So, you know, you can kind of joke about it, but what it does is it really kind of creates an environment where everybody is pushing everybody. And like I said, when you're the first guy in wind sprints, that's the cool thing to do. It's not, people don't scoff and laugh and point fingers and think, "Oh, what a loser. He's making us look bad." So, and I respected people that did that. When I saw people before practice, you know, working out and working on their own, I thought that's really cool. So when I was immersed in that environment, my plebe year, I was just watching these things. I was like slowly like picking up on these things. Right. And another example I'll use is one of my best friends from college. He was a serious wrestler, unbelievable athlete. Kid weighed You know, at one point he weighed probably 70 pounds more than I did, and he could run twice as fast as me. So he was just an unbelievable athlete. And he had a few knee injuries, and I mean serious, like blowout knee injuries throughout our college career. And, you know, the ACL, the meniscus, the whole deal. So he was on crutches, and he couldn't, you know, bear any weight. And he had the cast or the brace on his knee. And what actually like blew my mind, and this there was a few people that did this, but what blew my mind is this kid would go to the gym every day with his crutches, with his knee brace, and he can't bear weight, which means that you just can't pick up dumbbells and walk around. You know, you can't just easily get up off a bench and change the weights and do a drop set. So this kid was working twice as hard down there than anybody. And he was there every day, bench press, you know, curls. He was doing, you know, he couldn't hit lower body. He couldn't squat and lunge, but he was hitting everything that he could possibly still hit. And he was there more than just about everybody else in the school who was healthy and had two working legs and who had a functional body. So, you know, going down to the gym and seeing this kid with crutches and a knee brace every day, that's the kind of stuff where you're like, good Lord, you know, you're like, maybe I need to toughen up. And I, you know, I think there was self-reflection of like, you know, I'm telling myself, you know, well, I'm playing lacrosse, so maybe I can't. Yeah, man. And that was a big struggle for me at one point. Was I thought that I had to choose between lacrosse or weightlifting. And it was a serious conversation I had with myself. I was like, well, I'm playing lacrosse. I don't want to like let down my team and my coaches, you know, but I really want to focus on lifting, and I want to commit all my time to lifting. So at one point, I think it was my junior year when I came back, I thought, you know, I either have to, I have to quit lacrosse and tell my coach that I'm quitting, or B, I have to quit weightlifting and then resume it after the season. And I didn't want to lose all my progress and everything. And then I had a tough conversation with myself, and I looked at myself in the mirror one night and I said, why can't you do both? Like, there's absolutely no reason you can't do both. So what I did is I got stubborn, and I got really driven at the time. And I basically planned out my day so that I could go to a 2-hour lacrosse practice after school, and then I could do 2 hours in the weight room, and then I could study. So the thing is, I was getting 5 hours of sleep on average every night, 5 to 6 hours, for my junior and senior year, probably my sophomore year as well. My sophomore year was very tough academically, but my junior and senior year, I was operating on very little sleep. And it was one of those sacrifices that I made because I could sleep for 8 hours or 10 hours if I went to bed super early. But I just looked at myself and got serious. And I said, you know, if there's kids in the weight room every day of the week, you know, hobbling around on crutches, you know, why can't I just find 2 extra hours during my day to go hit the weight room? And sometimes I'd go at 11 at night. I'd go at midnight, or after I finished a lab report, or I'd go early. A lot of people would work out during lunch. I had a roommate that went on into special forces. And there's another example of somebody who I lived with for quite some time, you know, as roommates. And he was training 2-3 times a day. You know, he'd get up early at 4 a.m. some days. He would swim during lunch. I mean, and, you know, lunch, it's like you get an hour, you get 55 minutes. And you had kids that would sprint from their last class right before lunch. They'd sprint to their room. They'd put on a swimsuit, they'd put on goggles, and then they'd sprint to the pool. And these kids would sprint to the pool just so they could swim for 45 minutes. And then they'd go shower, change, and go back to class. And then they would go back to the weight room after school at 1600, you know, at 4 in the evening, and they would lift before dinner. And they would still get all their schoolwork done. It wasn't like that they were just, you know, simple meatheads, which I think people get that reputation. You know, people that lift weights, people that work out a lot of people just assume that, oh, they're not intelligent. But I realized that you could balance the academics and get really good grades and still work out and still play a sport. So being around people like that really pushed you, it totally changed me as a person. I stopped making excuses, and my friends, they wouldn't let you make excuses a lot. Right. You know what I'm saying? It was the tough love. It was, you know, what are you doing? And then if you were sitting there watching YouTube after school, it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, come on. You know, go hit the weights. So it was a great environment because your friends wanted to prop you up and lift you up. And I think that you read about it a lot on the internet. There's a lot of quotes about it. There's a lot of like cliche talk about it. Everyone's, you know, there's, you know, people say, you know, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around the most, right? Or, surround yourself with good people. And I think people are quick to say that. And I think that's overused a lot, but I don't think people actually take action on it a lot. I think they still hang out with people that they're comfortable with and just, old friends. And while you should be able to separate, a good time from work.
Right.
I think that there's a place for everything. I think that there's a place for going and having fun and going out on the weekends and going to Ravens games or to the bar. And I think there's a place for work and for being serious. But I do think that people underestimate the impact of actually just immersing yourself in an environment with like-minded individuals who are successful, who are driven, and who are better than you. I mean, there was people there that, when I went and sat in the classroom, I thought, good Lord, I thought I studied hard and I thought that I was good at math. And this kid is plugging and chugging equations in his brain that, that he learned years ago, and he still memorized these things. And I'm thinking, where'd that come from? And you get on the athletic field and like I said, you think that you're a hard worker, or you think that you're really committed, and somebody is running circles around you.
Yeah, man.
So being around people that were better than me in different respects, it really challenged me to become better and to try to rise up to the occasion. And like I mentioned to you earlier, when we were just chatting,
right.
People are quick to look at the physical transformation, right? And I'll put up a collage of 2 photos, right? Here's 2 years, here's 4 years, whatever it is. And, it looks superficial, right? Because you're just looking at the surface. And like I said, it's the physical transformation is just a byproduct of the mental transformation. And that's where I think a lot of people fail. They don't achieve their results when it comes to fitness and health and nutrition and weightlifting and, getting in shape, is because they're expecting the quick fix. They don't want to put in the work. And they're still stuck in that mindset. They're still stuck in that small world, that small bubble. They haven't actually stepped out of their comfort zone and learn something new or seen something different. So they fall back on their old ways. And like I said, when I went to the service academy, I was still the same Charlie that I was in high school. It took some time, and it took many experiences for me to stop making excuses and for me to get up earlier or stay up later. Or say, I can find the time. Arnold famously says, just sleep faster. That's one of his famous quotes. People say, well, I need 8 hours of sleep. And he says, you can operate on 6. You just have to sleep faster. So that's something that I kind of came to grips with. Whatever I'm telling myself, whether it's, oh, well, I have lacrosse practice tonight, right? And when I was in high school, lacrosse practice was my workout. And there was no question. There was no ifs, ands, or buts, right? But now I was like, you know what? I am doing 2 hours of lacrosse practice, but there's no reason I can't do 2 hours of weightlifting as well if I want to maintain my progress and keep progressing forward. So it was a huge mindset shift, and the body is just a byproduct of that, which is fun to see because it gives you tangible results, right?